Okay. We are having this conversation tonight because we have in English because we have got a few guests with us from outside of the Arab world, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good evening to all. Thank you for taking the time to join us tonight for a very inspiring discussion to talk about the future. And what would be a better subject to talk about the future other than education? So we thought tonight is to talk about a triggering discussion that could perhaps shape up a dialogue between business, government, and education for a better future, better alignment, better standards for education. I'm Abed Baidas. I'm going to be the moderator for this evening of Identity Branding Forum. And in the discussions, we're going to be talking about the role of higher education as being transformed exponentially around the world, and particularly in the Arab world. Its role is being redefined. And Dr. Amr could actually tell us how much being redefined with the standards that has been introduced recently. We are lucky today to be joined by three respected speakers that represents business, government, media, and higher education perspectives and expectations. Dr. Manal Abdel Samad, Lebanon's Minister of Information. Dr. Amr Ezzat Salama, Secretary General of the Association of Arab Universities. And Mr. Osman Sultan, the founding CEO of DO and Mobinil, Orange, Egypt. Now he is retired and on his own, and I'm glad to say he's a partner also in the Talents of Endearment and the chairman of the Board of Trustees of Talents of Endearment Career Labs. Now, tonight we're going to be talking about how to align the three sectors, business, government, and education, to boost students' career, business, and communities' development. It is nobody's secret that higher education is facing a real dilemma today. Some would say it is because of COVID-19. Some would say it is for poor quality of education. Some would say it is for regulation on education. Some would say the varieties of reason. This problem, by the way, is not just in the Arab world, but rather global. You will see the same issues happening in Asia. You will see the same issues happening in even the United States, Europe. And a new study from Carnegie Corporation and Gallup finds 46% of parents of US children aged 11 to 25 say they would prefer that their child pursue something other than 4 years of college immediately after high school. Now, rest assured, the same sentiment is found worldwide. Okay, the reason why we don't believe COVID-19 did create current challenges for higher education. It did, however, accelerate the inevitable to happen. Current challenges have been happening, but at a much slower pace than after the pandemic. For example, e-learning has been around since the beginning of this century, but was resisted and rejected by educators and regulators. 20 years later, and because of COVID-19, everyone is being pushed into it, forced to accept it, and adapt to it. Now, most institutions were not ready for it, especially regulators in the Arab world. COVID-19 sent education home, where it is now being exposed to parents. And this is what has escalated education challenges Parents are now saying, is this what I have been paying for my kids to learn? This, by the way, is universal. And why it is happening is another issue for broader discussion, which we couldn't actually handle for this evening to address it, and it should be addressed at a later time. This evening, we want to pass through the heart of the problem, and we want to go to the solutions and address the possible pathway to jumpstart education now before it's too late. There are too many discussions in terms of all the problems of education is happening, and we wouldn't be adding any additional values if we could talk about it now. So let's talk about what it actually could inspire us for something to do. Let's ask ourselves the questions. Why do we need education today in its current form, or the form that it was before the COVID-19 at minimum? Students today can acquire through Google more updated information than the instructor and required textbooks, analyze it faster than the whole department, and acquire a wider range of resources than the entire library of the school. Is it time to look at the new role or redefine the role of education in the post-pandemic after it's over? Is it time to transform education from meeting the demand of governments, regulators, and bureaucrats to education meeting the demand of business world locally? Is it time to revisit and update current regulations to align with the current requirement of career advancement of students, to align with business demand and community development? And how should it be decided? Is it time to look at a new localized vision for education in the Arab world? All these questions and others are valid to be addressed and should be addressed, but at a later time in a different forums we're planning ahead. Our aim here tonight is to start a dialogue between all major players who has a vested interest in the future of education and students' career development, mainly companies, government, educators, and yes, students. Although students are not present on our panel here, but at a later time, we're going to be having them after we establish the fashion where they get involved. Now let's focus on key stakeholders relationships that are able to push the agenda of higher education to a real and a meaningful transformation, business, education, and government, and touch on their expected role to move to action now, because now is the time that is required, not later, because wait cannot wait any longer. And let's get started with our first distinguished guest. She is not only the current Minister of Information for Lebanon, but is also a veteran educator teaching at major universities in Lebanon. Dr. Manal Abdul Samad, we are honored to have you with us tonight. Dr. Manal, do you see government?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Do you see governments as an obstacle to much needed transformation to advance higher education, or just completely confused at minimum in this era of COVID-19 pandemic? Go ahead, Dr. Manal. I think we lost Dr. Manal. I think we lost Dr. Manal first. Okay. Let's go to Dr. Amr until we get back Dr. Manal, inshallah. Dr. Amr, Ezzat Salam, you are the Secretary General. Okay, here we got Dr. Manal back with us.
Okay.
Okay, Dr. Manal, we got you back. I don't know if I lost you. Do you see?
Dr. Abed, it seems that there is a problem. Sorry, there is a problem in the network because every now and then it cuts because I'm maybe connected to another network, so I don't know what the problem is.
Dr. Manal, may I suggest, and it will be our misfortune, that you turn off the camera. It's a pity for us not to see you, but that will keep the bandwidth, so at least we can hear you. This is very often in some conferences what happens. The image takes a lot of the bandwidth, and in Lebanon probably the capacity of the network is oversaturated. So I'm suggesting this so at least we can hear you. Pity for us, we will not be able to see you during your speech.
I will do it, and I will not propose that you do the same and you cut all your cameras.
Graciously, thank you. So let me repeat the question again, Dr. Manal.
I think we lost her again.
Did we?
Yes, we lost her, yes.
Go to Dr. Amr.
Okay, Dr. Amr, let me go to you until we get back, Dr. Manal. You're the Secretary General of the Association of the Arab Universities, a former Minister of Higher Education in Egypt, and a long-standing professor. Thank you for honoring us with your presence tonight.
Thank you.
Now, let's go to that. Dr. Amr, what is missing today for higher education institutions to push governments, regulators to accept the fact that time for change is now? And bold moves have to be made now to save higher education integrity and reinstate people's trust and market confidence in education. Dr. Amr, go ahead, please.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me for this very important panel. And
sorry to interrupt, but Dr. Manal, we'll get back to you when Dr. Amr finish. If you can.
Yes,
you thank you. Go ahead, Dr. Amr.
Let me say first that I don't think that COVID-19 is the main reason for the challenges which we are facing, not only in the Arab world, but all over the globe. And let me say that, well, of course, the fourth industrial revolution, which we see the changes which is happening according to what the fourth industrial revolution is how it's affecting us and how it's affecting our society, is one of the main reasons for the challenges which we are facing nowadays. And if we look at what happened during the last 2 decades of the 21st century, the world witnessed a great change. This was not related actually to COVID-19 at all, which was reflected in all sectors of the human societies. And it also affected the concept of power and work, progress and luxury, which are related, of course, as you can see, mainly to the digital technology. And the phenomena of information technology led the emergence of knowledge economy based on innovation and creativity. I think we all live this era nowadays, considering that knowledge is the main source of wealth and achieving competitive advantage. However, achieving what we would like to achieve needs investing in human resources, intellectual and knowledge capital, education and the specialized training of the workforce constantly, the effective use of information and communication technologies, activation of research and development as an engine of change and development of all sectors of society. I think if we can let governments see this fact, I think we can convince them then that we need a major change in the regulations of the government, of the education system. We can let them, convince them with the way how to finance education, because these are, I think, the main two concepts which governments are, which education is concerned about. The regulations, the governmental regulations, even if we are talking about the state universities or the governmental universities and the private universities, and both, I think, they need to have a look for the way of their governance, for their independency, and how they can finance the education and the students. So that's why actually A number of international universities and higher education institutions developed their structures and systems to keep pace with the challenges of this era and strive to be smart and digital through some steps such as training the staff and students, deepening the ability to deal with digitalization, developing the infrastructure for information technology, and preparing good research, expanding the scope of digital group management, and working to provide the 5 elements that smart university is based on. We are talking about smart people, talk about smart environment, smart management, and the governance, smart buildings, and knowledge network. We need universities which depend on research, innovation, and provide a learning environment and skills relevant to the jobs of the future. And when we talk to the jobs of the future, we all know that in few years, millions of jobs will disappear, and other million of jobs will appear, but in something which we haven't seen for the past years. We need universities that teach students the 21st century skills and the ability to solve the world's most pressing problems and local, national, and global issues, that integrate technology and digital culture, and that focus on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM education, without ignoring social studies, that prepare students to labor markets and to the jobs of the future that contribute to national development. I think if we could convince governments with these elements which we are all looking for, this will take a great effort. We have to build this culture in the society so that governments can be convinced that they have to make the change. Thank you.
Nice. Dr. Manal, I got back to you since we got you, inshallah. Do you see governments as an obstacle to much needed transformation to advance higher education, or just completely confused at minimum in this era of COVID-19 pandemic?
Thank you, Dr. Abed. I'm sorry for this bad
That's okay.
connection here. We started because we had a double connection at our computers. First, I'm pleased to be with you tonight with experts in the field to discuss an important topic about education vision, challenges, and the contribution of stakeholders. Are you hearing me good?
Yeah, if you can just get closer to the mic, please. So there is no, yes, so the sound is clear. Thank you.
Okay. So I cannot talk about education without talking about the challenge of education in the 21st century, because now many changes has taken place in the world. Demographically, the world population quadrupled in 1 century. We find that it's 4 times greater than what we had in the 20th century. Globalization, artificial intelligence, social media that has more impact than traditional media. Even information is more abundant now, going from scarcity to big data to data analytics. So the environment is unstable, is uncertain, is hostile, is complex, and full of ambiguity, which makes future planning more difficult. And now, in the era of COVID-19, learning has taken different shapes, from face-to-face teaching to virtual, and then blended with high support of online services and an intense interface of technology.
Right.
Within all these changes and paradigm, are you okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So within all these changes and paradigm shifts, politically, economically, technologically, socially, and culturally, reconsidering our teaching curriculum, methods, and structure is a must. We find that disruptive technologies are contributing to reshape higher education, and here I mean artificial intelligence, big data, cloud computing, social media, and virtual and augmented reality, and the mobile technologies.
Wow.
There is a cultural change now that requires new digital skills, and we as governments should work on policies that ensure high quality education. As you know, in the Arab world, we count around 400 million, and among these 400 million, we find that 13 million are students, and we have 250,000 academic staff, and we have 300 private universities. In Lebanon, specifically, we are suffering in addition to abundant, maybe private universities and private institutions, we have a lot of financial and economic crises that add on other crises. And now work is focused on delivering scholarships to highly reputable universities in the world, benefiting from the competitive advantages of our students who always seek excellence in every case.
Now, in line, Doctora, in line with what you are saying, the difficulties, the obstacles, the challenges, and the financial burdens governments are facing right now, suffering right now, how much control do you think governments should have over education with all of that framed in mind?
Let's say government and educational institutions and civil society should work in without having any interference in universities and school management when it comes to appointments, when it comes to structures. However, I believe that governments should give permission to establish and operate educational institutions based on their competence and based on their quality and relevance assessment as per UNESCO report. Also, I believe that governments should work on guiding these higher education establishments in different measures related to copyright, related to intellectual property protection, and so on, mainly after the wide spread of technology. No matter what, governments should be verifying and inspecting on a regular basis schools and universities' activities and curriculums to make sure that they abide to minimum standards of quality and relevance. And this definitely can be done as well by regular on-site visits and joint meetings. If we go to specifically to Arab governments, they need to ensure high quality of public education based on good international standards, and they should work on regulating private initiatives to develop a well-grounded environment of entrepreneurs, of innovators, and future leaders.
Thank you. Mr. Osman, thank you for your distinguished presence with us tonight. You founded you founded two major telecommunication companies in the Arab world. Du in UAE and Mobinil Orange in Egypt.
Yes,
you built a multi-billion-dollar companies with thousands of employees. Phenomenal achievements. Mr. Osman, what kind of relationships were there for those companies you founded with higher education institutions to ensure the delivery of high-quality, employable college graduates? For example, how much those companies were involved in related researches with local universities to help advancing education in the fields of communications, IT, business, marketing, or media? Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Dr. Abed. And I feel humbled to be in this panel dedicated to education. I am not an expert like our two colleagues, our distinguished expert in the field, but I have the privilege of being called as an industrialist in a field that is impacting and that is at the heart of the transformation that we are talking about. So I am privileged because I sit on several boards, advisory board of some academic platforms and institutions that have this willingness to transform. And I'll talk about that during the various questions. Before I answer directly your very relevant question, Dr. Abed, I want to frame a little bit, a few headlines that will maybe illustrate the end game that I have in mind when it comes to education. When I started in telecommunication decades ago, we had a certain way of looking at things. We had certain certainties. In 20 years and 2 decades, every certainty transformed, and the entire ecosystem that we lived was completely disrupted. This is happening today. This wave is now rippling to every sector that we're talking about, specifically the one that we are dealing with today. Just the metaphor, when I started, there was a duo for telecommunication company, time and distance, where you are charged, if you speak more, you are charged more, and if you are in a further place, you will pay more. Today, what we are doing is showing that this completely disappeared. But with this disappearance, a lot of new players just invented new business models. So the disruption, and here I'm moving to education to make the parallel, is not going to be financial. It is not financial only. The disruption financially is going to happen, but the most important is the exclusivity relation, in my opinion, between the receiver, the provider, and the intermediate between them. When we speak, the receiver, the provider, is the academia, is the content, the knowledge that we're talking about. The receiver are the people who will receive, whether through an academic program or any format of the new formats of knowledge. And the intermediate are this ecosystem that is mainly organized by government, as Her Excellency Dr. Manal indicated, and the role of government, and of course Dr. Am, that I had the privilege to know when I was when he was a minister and I was at Mobinil at that time. These three are going to change fundamentally, in the sense that, and COVID is only an accelerator. These were happening because of the availability of technology that were happening. In the sense, a professor now can provide, outside of an exclusivity in this university or that university, a student can have from various professors who are in various universities, and the intermediate might one day disappear to become, like we had the Uberization of models between the provider of a car and the person needing a ride through a digital platform. If we think, and I know that what I'm saying can be provocative, we can see that the entire intermediation that is happening through the academic ecosystem today will be totally disrupted. That exclusivity. The content channel application. And what is the application? The application is you are using this knowledge and the workspace. And this is the discussion that you are leading to, Dr. Abed. We saw it when I was in Du in the last years. You know, we end up from university and we have specialties. We have finance, we have business, we have engineering, we have IT, computer science, etc., etc. And there was a correspondence, a usual correspondence, where finance would go to become in the finance department, engineering will go in the network, or IT will go in the IT, computer science in the IT department, business will go marketing or sales, etc. And we lived social sciences, HR, and others. These were things that we had always. Where do you place artificial intelligence, which is a need that you will need in every vertical? That's a horizontal skill that goes across all these. Where do you place analytics, data analytics, which is fundamental today in the way companies are moving? Where do you place the big data? Where do you place something new technology like blockchain that is becoming more and more expanding to various sectors? These are the problematics that we are now facing. And this is what students, you and I, Dr. Abed, we talked about that. This is where students are having difficulties to do this match between the content on one hand and the application of its content in these new forms. Her Excellency Dr. Manal mentioned in the disruption of media, the social media, and how the social media, we are seeing now people that are becoming drivers of ecosystems called influencers, where there is no check on any quality of content, but they are becoming a vector, a tool of transmission of some kind of knowledge. Two headlines very quickly. One of the areas that we will need as well to tackle is the transformation within this providing knowledge from depth to breadth. Today, the information is not because, and even in the internet, sir, when we used to go, internet started, and when we used to go to the internet like we go to a library initially. And when you go to Google, you are going to an expert. Still now, you do a research on Google, and you are going deep and deep in the subject. Today, what is more important is not how profound the substance is how spread it is, how many followers or how many. That's a fundamental cultural change that we need at various stakeholders to sit and to ask the right questions. I'm not saying we have the right answers, but it's fundamental that educators, governments, policymakers, academia, students sit and try to ask the right question. I will finish on my question very quickly. This depth and breadth, you are having today something, not only edutech, which is the technology of new education, you are in that, but the edutainment part. More people are saying students do not have the span of concentration. If you don't present this, you have more and more edutainment application. This is something that is questioning me, echoing with me. Government, Your Excellency, Dr. Manal, government have, I think, difficult choices. Progressive government should think how I should build a new house. Governments who are reacting will think how to fix the plumbing. Yes, we will put more computers. Yes, we will put, but that's not enough, because we will fix plumbing on ecosystems, processes, and a system functioning that if governments want to be progressive, if they want to do the leapfrog, to put their countries at the forefront. And for you, Madam, I believe, because it's subject dear to our heart, when a country is in a kind of very difficult situation, this is probably where, inshallah, a possibility of leapfrogging can happen. Possibility because the situation can be, in Lebanon, for instance, we had an excellent education system that was a reference in the entire Arab world and beyond. It is suffering today, but I think that elements are there in order to take the country and put it at the forefront of digital nations. To your question, and I'll end, yes, when I was in Mobinil for 7 years and in Du for 14 years, we had multiple collaborations with the academia, higher education institutions. But here you have to distinguish between the classic or the transformational, i.e., I need engineers, I pay for scholarships in engineering schools. But if I want to do my role as an important transformator in the fabric, economic and social and cultural fabric of societies, I try to do, and this is, for instance, what we did when we created a new media lab in Zayed University in Abu Dhabi. When we came with new ideas, I have the privilege of being in the new Mohammed bin Rashid School for Media and Communication, which has been built. I'm on the advisory board, which has been built to think differently, to prepare the students of the new media rather than transforming existing, as I said, fixing the plumbing. So we need all of us to have this type of thinking in order.
Thank you, Mr. Osman. Dr. Amr, You are the Secretary General of the Association of Arab Universities, a golden opportunity that I can see to unify the role of Arab universities across the region. What could be done to overcome current education challenges faced by institutions across the region? And what do you think is holding education institutions back or slowing it down from overcoming current challenges, like, for example, lack of funding, which is something that you mentioned earlier, or it could be something related to policies, special interest. Go ahead, please.
Well, thank you very much, and I really enjoyed what Mr. Sultan have said actually. But let us remember that when he was CEO of Mobinil, this was maybe more than 20 years ago, and although the role of IT companies, yeah, I think it changed completely nowadays. Yeah, after this 20 years, that's why he responded to your question but what he's doing now with this new with this organization, Mohammed bin Rashid or the other one, because things are different. Things completely different now than from 20 years ago. And as he has said, we are now talking about big data, we are talking about blockchain, and all this, the effect of the fourth industrial revolution actually is what's affecting us. And let me say, I'll give you a very small example that when due to COVID-19, before COVID-19, let me say that maybe if not all Arab states did not recognize the online education. And even they didn't have the regulations or the which allows for online education or distance education. These things, of course, COVID-19 helped in accelerating some of things which we all maybe will wait a long time to apply. But let me say that as I said, and as we all agree, that we have many challenges in higher education, such as governance and finance and education for the job market, the quality assurance, the incompletion rates, the research and research and development, the regional cooperation and information technology. We as a platform for the Arab universities and higher education stakeholders for the region, the association effectively contributes to improved higher education performance and graduate capacities, increased regional production of globally competitive knowledge and graduates, finding solutions to regional challenges through effective partnerships and utilization of generated knowledge and enhanced capacities of research, innovation and education systems, leading to improved ability to use science in addressing current and future challenges, in sustaining income growth and ensuring equitable integration of youth, and in meeting global challenges. Based on its strategy, and we have built a strategy based on the United Nations SDGs for the period 2019-2030, which focused on contributing to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. The ARU led and it's leading and working on multiple programs and projects. Most notably, we are working now in the Arab University Ranking Project, the Arab Qualifications Framework Project, the Arab Impact Factor for journals and articles published in Arabic, in Arab universities and Arab countries, the Quality Assurance Program in Higher Education, the accreditation of programs in universities and higher institutions. We have this TANAL project, which is the International Proficiency Certificate in the Arabic language, like TOEFL and other English tests. Furthermore, the association has concluded a set of partnership and cooperation agreements with many Arab and international academic parties. Such parties include, for example, Elsevier company to help Arab magazines to meet the quality standards for inclusion in Scopus database, the Alexo organization, the Arab League for Culture and Education, Culture and Science, Coursera company for technological and digital services, and the Chinese Technology Transfer Center to transfer Chinese technology to several Arab countries. We initiated a series of conferences, symposiums, and forums in cooperation with the counterpart associations in China, in Europe, in Malaysia, in Turkey, in Germany, in Russia, and others. We have also participated actively in European projects within programs such as Tempus, Erasmus Plus, and Erasmus Mundus for exchange and mobility. Actually, we played an important role in projects such as Leadership in Higher Education Management, which aim to support higher education institutions to establish a network for university leaders to encourage the convergence of universities and facilitate the exchange of students, researchers, academics, and administrative staff among partners through training centers. So actually, we are playing a very major role within our university members. And we are looking forward actually. For example, we have next week a major conference about the production of researchers concerning COVID-19 and how the Arab universities performed in this for this subject. So we are actually playing a role within our members, a very successful role up till now. Thank you.
Dr. Manal, we always say good media helps create positive perception of what could even be a poor image of existing reality. Don't you agree that media has been absent to do its share to help transform education, pass through current challenges? The floor is yours, Dr. Manal.
This is very interesting. Yes, thank you. This is a very interesting question because media, as you mentioned, it's a positive image and it should reflect it's a mirror of the whole society and the whole community. But if the community or the whole image is bad, definitely media will be showing bad image. But regarding the relation of media and education, as I've been reading in different studies, that media is lacking a lot of highlights on education, on social activities. What we see now, especially in the Arabic platforms and media platforms, what we see is only political discussions or entertainment. We find that we lack anything educational, anything that is cultural. So I think we have to work hand in hand with media outlets and with universities to try to be a two-way communication, not only showing what the government is doing and what are the projects that are being stated or decisions that are being announced. We should work on a two-way communication and getting from the community, from students, what are their needs, what are the job opportunities, and how can we match the supplier with the customer or with the client or with the students here in this case. So I think the role should be reshaped and we should work in concert with all these institutions. But let me go back to what Mr. Sultan has mentioned about breadth and depth. It's very true that we have to work on this multidisciplinary issues and we should work on the diversification of skills and not only building this deep knowledge in specific issues, because now we are open to different disciplines and we have to prepare our future leaders to such challenges.
Oh, we cannot hear
You
you.
are silent.
Abed, you are muted, Dr. Abed. You
You have
muted.
to
I get excited ahead of myself here. Okay, let's be practical. How can we refresh?
we could understand.
That's okay. How can we refresh media's role in context of local communities' ambitions, business needs, and universities' ability? Because we need to stop talking about what should be done and start talking about what is to be done now. How can we do it in order to start moving things ahead?
Let me tell you, as for them,
Go ahead.
Anna, I don't want to show what we were doing and what we were doing as the Ministry of Information, but we are doing a great work. For example, at the ministry, we tried to transform the Ministry of Information to a Ministry of Communication, and this was my vision from day one. It has been to develop and to restructure the Ministry of Information bodies by shifting the traditional official media, what we have, television, radio, and agency, and activating a modern law of media and communication to ensure freedom of information and the right to access to information, and expanding in the field of digital innovation and digital transformation towards e-government, towards media and digital literacy community. This is what we are doing now. And yesterday we were discussing with the parliamentary committee about the final draft of the media law that can have a modern shape of our media outlets and of some media principles. Regarding our identity repositioning, also the Ministry of Information aims and is working on migrating into, as I mentioned, the Ministry of Communication, where it connects with people through two-way streets, and we managed to conduct different town hall meetings with society, with the civil society, in order to discuss different matters. For example, the recovery plan of the government. We discussed with them the draft law of media. We discussed with them the freedom of expression and how they perceive it, etc.
Who should take the lead? I'm sorry, who should take the lead for what you're saying to actually start leading media? What do you think, business or education?
It's a joint effort. They should work together on the same table. They should discuss together, businesses, because the businesses, they cannot work without knowing exactly what the market needs. Students, they cannot also advance without knowing what businesses need, because they have to know what they are oriented for. And media should highlight on hot topics where they can serve students and they can serve businesses and match these two markets, the labor market with the supply. So I think it's a conglomerate effort, and they should work together. And this is what we do with our town hall meetings.
Well, I think Abed, that what Her Excellency said, that applies for all specializations, not only for media. Education should work with business together to get the product which we need.
Absolutely, but the media is the messenger.
Yes,
actually that could interpret properly what the culture to be established for education, business, and government to come together. Dr. Amr, there is a big challenge in the Arab world, specifically and around the world in general. Over 90% of students either drop out of high schools or don't continue to college for whatever reasons, leaving a huge gap for higher education institutions to fill with, for example, early vocational training. Is this something that is feasible for universities in the Arab world to do, get involved in? And especially, we are talking about hundreds of thousands, if not millions, a year in the Arab world alone. Dr. Amr.
Well, يعني studies which aim to improve the education systems showed that the duration of the student stay within the existing school system was an very important indicator, actually, of the quality of education. And the Arab countries, they are not they are not bad in this area. They ranks high in comparison to the countries compared in terms of high dropout rates. And I don't have the figures actually, but I can see it. Maybe if you are talking about the school, not the university, not higher education, maybe the dropouts in the school, the pre-university education, much higher than what happens in the.
Then let's talk about the numbers in higher education.
Yeah, well,
the percentage of dropouts.
Yes, I don't have the figure in front of me, but I don't think comparing us with the rest of the world, we are not bad. In the Arab world, we are ranked.
But don't you agree there is a gap?
There is a gap, yes, of course.
How can higher universities get involved to fill that gap? It doesn't matter how big it is.
Yes, well, I'm sure that yes, the problem of dropping out of school or university is a major problem, and that have exposed and continue to jeopardize the future of young people, and it pushes them to unemployment and committing crimes and deviant behavioral practices. So, incompletion of school or college is a disaster. And it happened for mainly two cases: financial problems or discouraging environment. And if this not addressed adequately by campus management, these reasons might lead to a significant decrease in student retention. University can improve their student chances of success by working to understand student frustration, providing appropriate supports, and finding ways to help them at their difficult times. Let me say that technical and vocational education and training, the TVET system, of course, should not be seen as a second-class education for dropouts or less brilliant students. And this is a major problem, actually, in our Arab societies. We look at the TVET education or the vocational or the education or technical education as a second degree type. TVET education is the core of the country's human resource development, and we can see it everywhere in the developed countries. And it ensures that new skilled workforces are churned out, especially in fields that are crucial to the development and the progress of the country. TVET education, which equips one with skills, promises wide and lucrative economic opportunities. We at the association support vocational training. There are Arab universities which grant degrees, intermediate diploma, professional diploma. Actually, I was in a visit 3 days ago to Al Balqa Applied University in Amman, in Jordan, in Sultan, Jordan, and this is a very good example for what I'm talking about. In vocational education, there are some of the Palestinian universities actually are working on that. I see dropping out is not simply a result of academic failure, but rather often results from both social and academic problems in the school or in the university. These problems often appear early in student school careers, suggesting the need for early intervention. These problems are influenced by a lack of support and resources in families, schools, and communities. So it is a joint effort between the university, the families, universities or schools, and the families and the community at large. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Am. Mr. Osman, we are living the digital transformation era at its best. Everything is digitized. I always hear you saying that. Everything is connected. How can we bring business who are the most to benefit in this, to help higher education institutions to improve the quality of education? Because higher universities need money.
Yes,
They need
yes.
ideas.
As I said, I'm not an expert in education to give a recipe how to improve the quality of education. What I will say is tools will allow, it's always an equation as simple as civilization itself. Content and a channel, and then it's in an application. Think even beyond all this technology. Content, we used to cut trees, they were channeled through rivers to go to some place for this wood to become houses and tables and chair and things we do in it. This didn't change. The media content used to be produced in a certain way, channeled in a different way, and then we use it. Then things were, that's part of the digital transformation. You know, just for the anecdote, His Excellency Minister Amr would remember the big thing that made the story of Mobinil and probably made a big part of my career is a slogan that was provocative at the time, Al-Mahmoul fi yad al-Jami', a mobile in the hand of everyone. Every expert, including in the boardrooms of these big telcos, was saying, what, in a country like, it happened. And then later on in Egypt, this is part of a digital transformation. There was a program by the government, Computer fi yad al-Jami', a computer for every student or likulli talib or something like that. So this is how that I know how to say what, in my opinion, is the end game. Now, you know, we live it at its best, but as well, a lot of people are puzzled. I assure you, you ask somebody, what is AI today? You ask 5 people, you will get 7 different answers because there is so much technology around us. And the model of construction that you raised is quite simple. And this is what universities will have to think. Everything will becoming sensing. Today, it's a reality. We all have something on this panel, except, of course, for Her Excellency Dr. Manal, who was too young to have known a world without mobiles. But the 3 others, all of us 3, are old enough to have known a world where we were adults without mobiles. And our life changed radically. No, I'm not joking.
I'm serious.
Most of our audience today, except, of course, the esteemed university responsible, but most of our audience haven't known a world where there is not this capability of doing whatever we know. So everything sensing starts today with our mobile, start in the classroom, that every question, every remark, and this is what Her Excellency said, the data that you can do with it. By the way, it's a double-edged sword. Communication, to use the word that she used, not only media, communication today can become your best enemy if you don't control it in the world of social media we live. She knows that from a government point of view because that's becoming now. So what I am saying is everything sensing, everything connected, and if you add to it some intelligence software, everything will become smart. Either normal analytics, this is the data analytics, and then you get the big data story, or you can have predictive software, AI, and then you get what we call the smart word. Universities will have to imagine everything they do, from the lab to the research center to the classroom, within this equation. Everything can become sensing. What do you do with all this information? You collect the storage, the data centers. It's a multiple dimension, but as well multiple stakeholders. On the content, I am not an expert, and surely I don't have a recipe.
Thank you. Dr. Manal.
I still have my Mobinil number.
Dr. Manal, in the United States, for example, sports play a big role to advance community support. May I ask you guys if it's possible to mute your mics until the points you speak, so we don't get the echo of each other. Thank you. In the United States, Dr. Manal, for example, sports play a big role to advance community support for local colleges. For example, in Michigan State University, Spartan football and basketball teams. University of Michigan, Wolverine football and basketball teams. That help to make those universities the center of their local communities. Those universities became iconic mainly because of their sports teams, attracting students, business sponsorships, and local community support. Is it possible to create similar iconic models in the Arab world? Dr. Manal?
Yes, my answer is always yes, we can. Definitely we can. As long as we have the vision, we have the will, and we have the resources. And I believe that each country has its own peculiarities and its own traditions. In the West, for example, as you mentioned, sports plays a big role for many reasons, but it's not necessary that sports to be the only player or the only engine of local communication.
Right.
Or local communities. In the Arab world, we have a lot of rich and diverse communities and has a lot of potential for cultural and creative and social sectors. Arab societies, as you all know, we are rich in arts, in literature, drama, for example, crafts, traditional industries, including food and agricultural materials, and many others, and definitely not to forget the media production, because we have really very distinguished media production. So any work that benefits society can be an attractive factor for students and for locals. And people by nature, anywhere in the world, they appreciate productivity, appreciate useful work and development in all areas of life. So I believe, yes, we can invest our human resources and discover the strengths of our societies and develop them for the benefit of all. But then I can go back to my first word when I said we need this consolidated effort between all industries in order to succeed in this mission.
Mr. Osman, you heard Dr. Manal said she can. And we keep coming back at you because you're the man with the money.
No, presented money. Subject. Indeed, I was.
You were man with the man with the money.
Allow me to rectify something you said. He retired. What I said and what I try to repeat, but people don't understand, I wanted to leave my executive life. So I have a non-executive life where I have much more work, actually, as per what my wife is saying, but I didn't certainly retire. I changed. I sit more on boards. I strategize more, because after 24 years of being a CEO, you don't want anymore to just do the bolting and the, so you really need to think it more. So on the sports, why I'm saying dear to my heart, I'm going to give an example. Every telco is in sports, almost, and you will see the name of the telco either on a player and the brand on a
I'm talking about Mr. Osman. How can we support sports at colleges?
I'm coming
Okay.
to this.
Go ahead.
I'm coming to this. I'm coming exactly to this through an example. So we had a choice. We could pay millions to have our brand on a t-shirt, or we can precisely use the American model that you very rightly refer to and link it with some educational thing. So what we did, you didn't see Fodoo. This is Fodoo here. You didn't see any sponsoring of any club or any, yes, of course, we sponsored one day a cup, etc. That was good, because there is always this excitement by the youngsters. But what we did, we created a program, and that was a long program that existed over years, because sustainability is important, where the slogan that I am very proud of, because I said, I don't want to celebrate today a victory or an emotion. We want to make today the heroes and the champions of tomorrow. So we created a program linked with schools. We went to schools. We did it with La Liga. We brought the best coaches. And by the way, this was as well linked like the US model to grades in schools and colleges. In the US, you can't follow these. In these colleges, you can't have a sports sponsorship if you don't have a certain threshold of certain. So we tried to start it. Unfortunately, as Her Excellency said, you need resources and you need the continuity and you need a joint effort. We really wanted to have more people coming with us. I didn't have enough time, but the program lasted for 4 years, 4 or 5 years, and it created, and some of the players now, young players now, they are in their 18, 19, they play in clubs in Europe because they have been scouted and coached, etc. Sports, and that goes beyond just sports, that goes to what I said, edutainment. Unfortunately, the span of attention of our kids, send them a very interesting video that is 6 minutes, they will see the first minute, they tell you, no, it's too long. Khalas, you need to send the message in a very concise way. We used to read because the subject was interesting to us. We go to search, you used to read books. World is changing. Education has to adapt to this new reality. We like it, we don't like it, that's not the matter. So and sport is a great thing to motivate people, to link it, and to this kind of education. I don't know how, again, but as Her Excellency said, joint effort, a lot of stakeholders sitting around the table. I encourage the culture of the right question today. Now we come from a generation where we needed to know the right answer. We used to learn ونحفظ. Now today the answer, as you said, Dr. Abed, is somewhere, is on Google. We need to make sure in a more complicated and complex world to have the culture in the education system, the culture of asking the right questions.
Dr. Amr, I'm trying to get you money for your universities. I'm trying hard.
Dr. Amr,
I'm sorry. Am I muted now?
Let me say that the role of the university, the schools or the universities is not just educating. Yani this is a major thing which we all should know, and we all know. Yani it's building the character of the graduate or the citizen. You are building it by education, by sports, by cultural aspects, by social activities. So there are, a university is not just, that's why distance education or online education is not the thing which we are all looking for. This does not build the character of the citizen of which we need. So sports, of course, is very important part. I remember in 2004, when I was the Minister of Higher Education, I brought the people of the it was called the the Sport Union of Universities, and I asked them to start build this competition between the universities and the students themselves. It's like, I don't know if you know, all of you know, Al-Ahli and the Zamalek. These are the most famous teams in Egypt. And I asked them that I would like to see a competition between Cairo University and Helwan University and Alexandria University. And so they have to compete against each other. They have to build this sports in universities. So I agree completely that we need to integrate this integrate well in our universities and in our schools. Meanwhile, it is, as I said, it is important to get a graduate which is good for the society.
You see, Dr. Amr, I'm not talking about the sports as a sports, which is important for the kids. I'm talking about the sports as a way to attract business relationships through sponsorships of the teams and the activities to enhance the financial capabilities of the institutions, and also help build
the competition will attract the business.
Exactly. This is what we're trying to do.
The competition will attract the business. The business comes comes when find an environment, will find the supporters that he will market his product among them.
Do we have the mindset, the right mindset, at the higher education institutions leadership level to do that, to pursue it? Are they ready for that role, to take that leadership role?
Yes, I think so. Yes, I think so. I think, and it's they are ready. Not in all the Arab countries, not in all Arab universities, but you will find very good. They find a lot of universities are ready for that.
Okay, now we know that there is the will, the readiness to do it.
Yes.
Dr. Manal, how could government enhance its roles to drive business supports for local education transformation and alleviate the historical financial burdens on government by promoting incentives to bring activities such as sports that could actually help business bridge relationships with the education sector?
I think, for example, if we take the example of
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I believe we can use our public media platforms to promote for sports, especially that students and youth are very interested in such activities, and they can deviate from the other maybe bad habits that are surrounding us. So this is a good opportunity now to work on more coverage in the media outlets of any kinds of sports. And then, as I mentioned, we can also we can communicate with schools to participate in different games, sports games, and they can be showing on TV. So in this case, they will be more interested to participate in such events where they will be watched by everybody and will be getting more fame. So this was our plan. Unfortunately, in Lebanon, every plan is interrupted by many obstacles, and we face a lot of obstacles that impede us from continuing any plan. But it can be done once all is settled.
Mr. Osman, coming back to you again. All right. You've got the business mind, you've got the business brains where we can help the government, the poor government, the hardworking education institutions to make things happen for them. Without business financial support to advance research at local colleges, local education has no hope for advancement. Business is the pivot for the future of education and career development for students. What incentives? How could we, if you are at EDU right now, what incentives do you need to expand and individualize the role of the business in the future of education? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I was unmuting my mic.
Okay, go ahead.
And I was saying that's a very, very relevant question, Dr. Abed. As I said previously, today, industries like the media industry, the telco industry, even retail is transforming, with the Amazon Souk, transportation industry, as I mentioned, Uber, Kareem, and others. So these are things in 15 years that completely disrupted the way we do things. And now new technology are erupting, and there is not, as I said, the preparation for this. I think a conversation between the business. If I was at the head of a telco company, I'll go to universities, I'll set programs to have data analytics experts, specifically that a lot of countries in the Arab world want to develop this locally. They don't want to import. I will ask for experts in artificial intelligence to build. And if industry are wise, and industry is always driven by their interest, industries and businesses are always driven by interest. Yes, there is the corporate social responsibility, but either you do it corporate social responsibility and it's an image and you're building the emotional bond with your public and audience, which is not something bad. But if you give it as well a different twist, it might be less visible, but it might be much more building for the future. If I create generations of experts in data analytics, blockchain, the specific technology, the new ones, I am helping my company, I am helping the sector, I am helping adjacent sectors, because all the sectors that I mentioned, and I am helping a nation as well, and I am helping the region, because I can't help. And you know what I call digital generation, digital Arabia is much advanced than the governments. Go see in Lebanon the young entrepreneurs that we meet. Her Excellency can see and can know. We have bright. I am involved in as well in Egypt with some young people in the fintech and new payments, digital banking, etc. Here in the UAE, it's becoming a hub, a global hub for that. Jordan, the entrepreneurs in Jordan, Morocco, etc. I believe that this generation is there. They're not waiting for us, or they're not waiting for the policymakers. They are ahead. We need to listen more to them. We need to empower them more. You're mute, Dr. Abed.
I knew I was mute. I was just checking if you were noticing or not.
You are mute now.
And I'm not muted. Am I?
No, Dr. Osman is mute.
Yeah, okay, right. It is apparent that we need a common purpose, okay, that would unify the efforts of education, institutions, business, governments, and media to help students build the future of their dreams and ours. Okay, it's very obvious. Unfortunately, we are limited with the time. Otherwise, this conversation could end up for months to get the final outcome. Dr. Manal, let me start with you first. Who do you think has the biggest interest and should take the lead to frame it for everybody else to follow suit and get it founded? Is it companies, education institutions, governments, media, or students? Go ahead, please. You are muted. Dr. Manal, you are muted.
You are muted, Dr. Manal.
I got trapped. I'm sorry. As I always mention, that the government, civil society, and I insist on this, government, civil society, educational institutions, media outlets, they should all work in concert to ensure a better place at all aspects and to ensure quality education, that it comes first, definitely. But media plays a prime role in addressing the needs and concerns of every sector, and here we are talking about education, and also plays a vital role as a watchdog, and through pushing for accountability and mobilizing the public. And we can see it abundantly on our media, the investigative journalism that's playing a major role in fighting corruption, or at least highlighting corrupt acts. In the essence, the role of media is to highlight, in this context, the educational institutions' problems, teachers and students' concerns and needs, to urge the government and the stakeholders to find solutions or to ensure this meeting. And the media also, I believe that it can play a major role in highlighting issues that are of interest to students, to fresh graduates, to startups, like job opportunities, as I mentioned, like industries highlights, economic and social challenges, ideas, innovative projects, etc. So it can be, the media can be a joint platform to discuss these concerns and these projects that are raised by students, by businesses, and they get the answers from different stakeholders. And this is what is media about. So I believe that media is a key player.
Dr. Amr, who do you say?
Well, I'd say yes. I agree completely with Her Excellency. There are these four pillars should work together actually. يعني government, civil society, business, and the education system, education institution. Unless these four are working together, coordinating together, I think it will be difficult to achieve something tangible. Media, of course, is playing a major role here, and I think, yes, I agree completely that media will play the major role. Universities, I think universities in the Arab world are ready. They are really ready, especially after the experience of the COVID-19 and what happened, and it showed that we have the ability and we have the personality, we have the persons, we have the expertise to do that. So I think, I think, yes, I agree with Her Excellency completely, yes.
Mr. Osman?
I am going to be a little bit naive, if you allow me, Dr. Abed.
Go ahead.
I am imagining that this beautiful picture that Her Excellency, and she's absolutely right, saying, we have the government, we have education institutions, we have the students, we have there together. I think what the first act is, somebody has to drive the thinking into to define what good looks like. And if we don't build the blueprint, where do we want to go? And that is still, in my opinion, with a lot of humility, a lot of questions. Before, I have sat in so many platforms where everybody comes with an answer. We are defining the best plumbing, or we are defining the landscape of the garden, but nobody is building the blueprint for the house. This is a role that governments are not ready to let go. It is normal, it is legitimate, but they need to step back a little bit and leave, or let the questions that are asked, let the arguments that are posed by the various stakeholders have more weight. This is what I think. So, in principle, what Her Excellency said and Dr. Amr confirmed is a no-brainer. Yes, it is a joint effort, but in my opinion, there should be a methodology, a construct in this dialogue, in this missing conversation today.
And thank you, Mr. Osman. Let me tell you a little story that Mr. Osman and I have invested a lot of time, money, and hard work to simplify the relationships or create the dialogue, and especially guided by students. We keep talking about the alignment. How do we align students with business? How do we align students with education? How do you align education with business? And together, for the outcome to be observed, for the outcome to be notable. So we created a program called Talents of Endearment Career Labs. And from its name, it is about the development of a relationship that brings students from around the world with business to collaborate and build amazing things. It's a platform that we build. What we do basically through these platforms is we show the students, we call them scholars in this, or the participants, how to be what they want to be and build the future of their dreams. Because everybody tells them your future is in education, your future is in AI, or in engineering, or in law, or in finance. And unfortunately, they are discovering it is not, because they finish education after 4 years only to become unemployable. They cannot do it. So how do they become employable in that sense? So what we wanted to do is we thought about how do we really show students what they can do today to understand the future and make it relevant to them business and communities. This is hard-fetched through conventional education. They are burdened with responsibilities, with finance difficulties, regulatory obstacles, political bureaucracies, and the likes. So how do we really allow the students to become relevant so if the world looks at them and says, hey, you are the hero that we want to hire you? So what we wanted to do is we based this on a Gallup study that came out last year that says 15% of your success is based on the technical skills you have learned in college. We all agree on that. 85% of your success is based on your relationships with people. We don't teach them that in college. We try to, but there are limitations, and Dr. Amr would know, and Dr. Manal would know, these limitations are hurdles for the student, for things to progress, even if the educators wants to. They couldn't. Regulators don't let them. So what we did here is we created a model. How do we bring the 85% to the 15%? This table we created on the left, on the right-hand side, this is where everybody goes to college for. Food, clothing, housing, health, education, transportation, law, IT. You can add to the list as you want to. This is what we say, and this is what all businesses are. Here, this is what they do to sell, to make money, right? On the left-hand side, we created the 85%. It's basically to discover people's aspirations, their interests, their ambition, to develop relationships with the market. What do they really want to do? How to really improve people's life? How to really help people feel great about themselves? And the reason why this is critical, important, that we didn't teach them much in college, but this bunch on the left-hand side will become the group that would sell this for students. That's what students lack when they graduate colleges. This is what students lack that they couldn't get in business. That's why they're unemployable. But when they started developing the environment, the ecosystem to sell them here, they become successful, they become employable, desirable. But we also thought of something else, not to stop at what you discovered for this, but how to scale up, how to connect to generation. We created another table, which is based on the Sustainable Human Development Protocol that we have. We broke the life cycle of people to 5 phases, to 5 generations, completely, and help the students to be able to drop this onto this. So now the students are able to map their way across generation while they are the growth, not just to limit themselves in terms of what I've studied, the skills. So their role right now is redefined. It changed tremendously. And in the career labs, what we do to help them connect to those generations, create those opportunities, we bring them together. We bring high school students, college students, business, and entrepreneurs from around the world in a 33 days virtual experience in order to develop the relationships, the opportunities that they can have for themselves. And this is based on 2 strategic questions that we designed this for students. How can we push students to the edge of chaos to think out of the box in collaboration with the students and business from around the world, build projects together that serves their personal business common aspirations? So we're talking about alignment here. How can we build an exciting e-learning experience to enhance a scholar's discovery and e-learning and learning journey in a friendly, transparent, and scalable environment? Okay, so what we wanted to do is think about creating I-generation, or the intelligent generations of all times. This is critical for when somebody that wants to think about either a job or they want to think about the long-term career development, growth. And this is what we talked about. If you want to keep coming, if you want to be competitive, you got to think crazy, okay, for a reason. This is what Steve Jobs said. So what we wanted to do, I-generation, the intelligent generations of all times, is to think crazy of all the time, how to disrupt things. And to do that, we had to think about how to amplify it, take away everything that limits them, supervision, restrict resources. And the reason why we did, because think about what happens when you take supervision, direction, and resources out, you create chaos. Okay, because now I'm thinking of sending you to the swimming pool with a floating tube. When you get to the swimming pool, I take away the floating tube. Now you have to figure out how to survive in the swimming pool. That's a creativity bunch that we do, help students. So what we did when we tested this, we came up with opportunities. It's a reality when you have chaos. Now you are on the spontaneous opportunities of learning for students in order to discover what could be done, unlimited for them. And so we created a model that is to create absolute opportunities. Almost going back, think about 100 years ago when we had no schools, no teachers, just mentors and coaches, no textbooks, no supervision, and no grading, allowing the students the freedom to think on their own what they want to be, not to limit them. So what we wanted to do in the T Career Labs we designed is not to focus on how to do the next thing right. This is what we teach them in college, but we wanted them to start focusing on what is the right thing to do next. That's the challenge that they face when they graduate, not to be able to compete. So we considered how they think, how they learn, how they communicate, how they are, where they are now, how they prepare. So we create the environment, replicate the environment for them on the platform, e-learning, for them to do that. Because it's not about the technology, what kind of technology we use. It's about the strategy of how to help them excel. And that's what we did focus on in the program. So through that, they will learn how to connect and engage with people. How to explore universal opportunities when they come together with the students and people from around the world. How to collaborate to build amazing things, and how to check their ideas, validate their ideas, their skills, to make sure that it's ready for the market, socially, economically, and technically. So in highlights, to help them unleash their potentials, we bring them together from people from around the world based on the purpose, create a common purpose. And that's something they lack, the students' population today, to capture people and drive markets, because this is what makes them attractive. Now I know how to make you famous. Now I know how to make you desirable. And what we did here is it's based on the mentorships that we bring them with mentors from around the world. One of them is Mike Salisbury, the guy that created the success stories for Michael Jackson. The Jurassic Parks, the Levi's, major brands, the legendary brands, and he's one of the legends in the force. And this is the caliber of mentors that these students lives through that experience that they're exposed to and branded. And we give them a platform for 5 years to build their ecosystem for their career community, who they chose to partner with, the businesses, the relationships that they build, the businesses they want to partner with, to help them for their career success through the roadmap that we give them. And we also give them a lifetime support, community support. So throughout their career time, we give them the opportunity to get help whenever they need that help for them. So the value for the schools now we have the schools that have the opportunities to test and to develop entrepreneurs of today and tomorrow, compete globally. But now they have data, real ground reality data developed by those students for their career. That could be a benchmark for the future of education and the future of work. What's value to business? Discover validated market ideas. Right now we are working with major corporations from around the world that are interested to take this idea to test their products, to test their ideas through the students in colleges, schools, and universities. Acquire future talents of winning. Now they will learn how to create social impact that has an impact on the business. The main interest of businesses to support this is now they can develop, test, and promote brands through the students in this program at a very minimal cost of less than $100 for the lifetime of that students. We did this because this is our way to support them for the rest of their life and their commitment. So what we do is through this, to create that alignment, through the Talents of Endearment Career Labs, we bring students, business professionals together to collaborate, to create and recreate, co-create And we did something else that is uniquely developed. So what we wanted to do is create a clusters of communities that they are connected to the rest of their life to continue growing. This is something they lack. The students, when they graduate college, they leave, they're on their own. What we wanted to do is complement higher education with minimal investments for them to take that further with them. And what we also did is we created 20X initiatives for a competition worldwide. Now we have 12 universities working with us from around the world with over 900,000 students plus to bring these values to their education communities. And what we have is the value. I don't have enough time to go through the platform to show what we did. But what we need to do here in this is to show there is a way to make things happen. There is a way for the future to excel. And with this, I think we time for a few questions and answers. I see there's one question. Why Arab universities haven't connection with pivot sectors in order to understand the markets? Dr. Amr, I think that could be for your question, or Dr. Manal.
This was a culture for a long time in the Arab societies. But I think nowadays with the emerging of this so many private universities now in the most of our Arab countries, people, you see, business at least, because there was only state universities, and they said, well, the government will finance the education and finance the research which is running in the state universities. But nowadays, with the merging of not-for-profit universities and private universities, I think there is a good link is now happening, even with the state university. I think the culture has changed now, and our universities and even our business organizations looked at what's happening outside, and they saw how the cooperation and the connection between business and education could succeed and could do the real development which we are looking for. I think what we see nowadays is something in this way, and it is increasing.
There's another good question also, and I think what is Dr. Muhammad is trying to say, the cultures in the Arab world, we were spending a lot of money, a lot of resources on universities and education, but we couldn't reach the top 100 universities in the world. Dr. Manal, would you like to address that question?
Yes, you meant that. Yes, we are still behind, because if you go to QS ranking, we find that Arab universities are really very behind. If we compare with the AUB, the American University of Beirut, which is the top university in Lebanon, it's also ranking in the 200 something. So this is basically due to mainly the lack of research in our countries, let's say Arab countries. And I believe that we have to work more on international standards and what is best for education and for promoting good principles and good standards. So this is what we have to work on. We are always taken by internal problems and internal issues without reflecting on what is going in the world and what are the best fits in the world in respect to education.
Thank you. Dr. Amr, there's a question I think
the good thing here actually is that the ranking of the many Arab universities is improving. And through the 16 years ago, when the first ranking appeared in 2003 or 2004, as I remember, which is Shanghai ranking, there was not a single Arab university in the top 500 universities in Shanghai. But by the time you can find now quite good number of universities in Shanghai and in the QS. Even in the QS, as Her Excellency said, the AUB is leading here, and the AUC in Egypt, for example, as it's ranked 300 and something. But there are some Saudi universities. There is this the Qatar University. There is the university from Emirates, and there are 5 or 6 universities from Egypt. So things are improving because universities recognize that it's important to be included in ranking. So they are working on the
standard,
the standard each ranking, and they are working hard on that. So they are improving. If you look at the history, you will find the curve is going up.
Very true. I agree with that. Dr. Amr, there is a question, and I would like to address it from Dr. Olafemi from Nigeria. He's the president of the college there. And he's saying the e-learning is the future that can help the development of education worldwide. And the world is discovering this challenge now. And in Africa, they're still having a hard time to believe it, like we did in the Arab world from the beginning of this century,
Yes.
until COVID-19 actually says it's time to believe in it. What he's asking, how could they do it? When I think in there, and I think there's a potential opportunity for the Arab universities, at least the ones that are more advanced with e-learning, to collaborate and expand the market reach, the cultural reach into the African countries for greater opportunities.
Yes.
How do you see that the potential?
The problem here is that is the infrastructure. The infrastructure of so many of the African university is very poor. Actually, to find an internet connection in most of the areas there, it's difficult. So it's not a matter of having an online learning. It's a matter of preparing the country, preparing the infrastructure for the e-learning or for the online education. Of course, yes, it's an opportunity there for some universities. It's even, and I usually say that if our Arab universities doesn't move fast, they will lose their students to international universities. If a student find an opportunity in the MIT or in Harvard online, if we are work online only, maybe they prefer to have an international degree from a university like the MIT or California CIT or wherever, rather than from a local Arab universities. So that here there is a competition, and this competition we have to work to cover it very quickly.
All right, we need to come to a close because I think Dr. Manal is in a hurry. We need to wrap it up. Dr. Manal, I will let you have your closing remarks, if you could, please. Okay, Dr. Manal, the floor is yours. You are muted. For your closing remark, please.
Hello, yes, thank you. I'm sorry because I have to leave. I have another media interview. I want to say that we have not to work to think strategically. We have to think for the future. And when you talk about the future, we consider that innovation, creativity, entrepreneurship, technology, new technologies should be taken in consideration in any project that we are aiming at. And as I mentioned, also joint efforts are well needed with all parties. We should work together in order to achieve all.
Thank you. Dr. Amr?
Well, all what I have is to say thank you for this very rich meeting. Thank you for having the opportunity to participate and share with Her Excellency, the Minister Manal, and with my old colleague, Mr. Osman Sultan, in this very fruitful session. Thank you.
Mr. Osman, you're muted.
Same thing, extending my gratitude to be present with these esteemed panelists, Her Excellency and Dr. Amr, and on a topic that is so transformational for our societies, and on a topic where I think we all have a responsibility. Where there is no recipe, I just keep saying we have to open our eyes, we have to open our minds, and as well open our hearts to embrace change. We owe it to our children and their children. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Manal. Thank you, Dr. Amr. And thank you, Mr. Osman. And like I mentioned, we are here to start a dialogue, a journey that could last for years to continue to make things happen. We can. So, on the behalf of our Board of Trustees, Mr. Osman, the Chairman of the Board of Trustees of our programs, we extend our support to work with you, to collaborate with you, and make available, like we did for 12 universities, among which includes Amity University, Gujarat, of 400,000 some students, to make things available for transformation for the future. Like you said, somebody has to carry the torch, and somebody has to have the courage to make that move ahead. Mr. Osman and I, we made the decisions that we want to carry that torch. Because if we're gonna leave it to the debate of everybody, it's endless and it's not gonna get started. We're ready to get started, and I'm sorry if we took a little longer than we should. Then the dialogue that we started here shouldn't stop here, and I think we should. We're planning to have additional dialogues on the other questions that we was discussed before. Sure. Thank you so much. Please stay safe, stay productive, and stay connected, as we say, and let's hope for the best. Maybe next year we will be talking what we're going to be doing in the next 50 years. Thank you. God bless. Good evening.
Thank
everybody.
you. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Thank you. Salama.